The massive chamber floated in space above the dead world of Zarian Prime. Inside the crystal walls, the Hegemony Council met to decide which planet would die next. They had done this same meeting for 3,000 years. It never got old. Fleet Admiral Zeftai stood before the glowing screen that showed star maps. His forearms moved across the controls while his mandibles clicked with satisfaction. Today was special. Today, they would mark their next target. "Show me the Sol system," he commanded. The screen shifted to display a small yellow star with several planets orbiting around it. The third planet from the star glowed blue and green. Clouds swirled across its surface. It looked peaceful. It looked weak. "Earth," said Communications Officer Valthara. "Population approximately 7 billion. Technology level, primitive. They still burn fossil fuels for energy. Their fastest ships barely reach their own moon." Admiral Zeftai laughed. The sound was like glass breaking. "Perfect. Another easy conquest for the Hegemony." The other council members nodded their agreement. General Corthan pulled up intelligence reports on his personal screen. Their weapons are crude. Chemical explosives and simple nuclear devices. Their military forces are divided among hundreds of small nations. They fight each other more than they cooperate. "Excellent," said Admiral Zeftai. "The war computers estimate 99.7% chance of total victory within 72 hours. How refreshing to find such a simple target." The council chamber buzzed with pleased conversation. For 3 millennia, the Hegemony had conquered star system after star system. Some species fought back. Some tried to hide. Some attempted to negotiate. All of them failed. The Hegemony's method was simple and effective. Arrive with overwhelming force, demand surrender, and if refused, destroy everything until compliance was achieved. Science Officer Talvera spoke up. "The humans do show some interesting traits. They seem unusually persistent in their conflicts with each other. Some of their wars have lasted decades. Persistence means nothing against superior firepower," Admiral Zeftai replied. "Their biggest ships are made of simple metals. Our smallest scout vessel could destroy their entire space fleet." The tactical display showed Earth's orbital space. A few space stations circled the planet. Several satellites provided communication and weather monitoring. It was pathetically simple compared to the vast networks that protected civilized worlds. "They don't even have proper planetary defenses," observed General Corthan. "No orbital weapons platforms. No shield generators. Their detection systems are so primitive, they probably won't see us coming until we're already in their atmosphere." Admiral Zeftai studied the planet with his compound eyes. Earth looked like thousands of other worlds the Hegemony had conquered. Green continents, blue oceans, white clouds. The humans had built cities, but nothing that looked impressive from space. No megastructures. No signs of advanced engineering. "Their population centers are spread across the surface," noted Talvera. "No underground cities. No polar installations. They live entirely on the surface like animals." The Admiral's mandibles clicked faster with excitement. "Send a preliminary assessment to High Command. Earth is approved for immediate conquest. Deploy the 3rd Subjugation Fleet." The 3rd Subjugation Fleet was perfect for a target like Earth. 50 dreadnoughts, each one larger than the humans' biggest city. 200 support vessels. Enough firepower to crack continents. The fleet had never failed to achieve victory. "Estimated travel time?" asked the Admiral. 6 months at standard warp speed, replied Navigation Officer Kelthek. "We can arrive faster, but there's no need. The humans aren't going anywhere." Admiral Zeftai approved the mission parameters. The fleet would jump to warp within the hour. By the time they arrived at Earth, The conquest plans would be finalized. The humans would be offered the chance to surrender immediately. When they refused, as they always did, the bombardment would begin. What about their government structure? Asked General Cortham. Who should we contact for the surrender demand? Tavera consulted her files. They have no unified government. Something called the United Nations serves as a discussion forum, but it has no real power. Individual nations maintain separate military forces. Even better, said Admiral Zeftai. Divided enemies are weak enemies. They'll spend more time arguing with each other than fighting us. The council began discussing which human cities should be preserved as examples and which should be destroyed as warnings. It was a familiar conversation. They had held the same discussion about the Kurvani homeworld, the Veshan colonies, and dozens of other conquered civilizations. Their largest population center is something called New York, said Tavera. Approximately 8 million inhabitants. We should leave it intact to serve as an administrative center after conquest. Agreed, said the Admiral. Destroy their military installations first. Then target their industrial centers. Save the population centers for last. Give them time to consider surrender. The war computers had already calculated the optimal attack pattern. Strike the military targets within the first hour. Eliminate their communications networks in the second hour. Begin bombardment of industrial targets in the third hour. The humans would surrender before the end of the first day. They always did. Admiral Zeftai dismissed the council with satisfaction. Another successful planning session. Another primitive species marked for conquest. The Hegemony war machine would continue its expansion across the galaxy. In the docking base below the council chamber, the third subjugation fleet prepared for departure. Crews loaded weapons and supplies. Engineers performed final checks on the warp drives. Everyone moved with calm efficiency. This was just another routine conquest. The flagship, Inevitable Victory, led the formation as the fleet engaged their warp drives. 51 points of light disappeared from normal space, heading toward the Sol system at faster than light speed. 6 months to target. 6 months to prepare for another easy victory. The Admiral looked forward to adding Earth to the long list of conquered worlds in the Hegemony database. Behind them, Zarian Prime continued its silent orbit around its dying star. Another dead world in the Hegemony's wake. Soon, Earth would join the graveyard of civilizations that had dared to exist in the path of progress. The conquest of Earth had begun. 3 months into the journey to Earth, the third subjugation fleet maintained its steady course through the void. Admiral Zeftai spent his days reviewing conquest plans and his nights dreaming of another easy victory. The crew had settled into the comfortable routine of a long voyage to certain. Triumph. Communications Officer Volthara worked the night shift on the flagship's bridge. She monitored deep space frequencies for any signs of activity. Space was mostly quiet. Occasionally, she picked up radio signals from distant civilizations, but nothing that concerned the fleet. On the 93rd day of the voyage, her equipment detected something unusual. A brief transmission from the direction of the Sol system. She almost ignored it. Primitive species often sent random signals into space. But something about this signal was different. The transmission lasted only 3.7 seconds. Much shorter than typical radio chatter. But the signal was complex. Very complex. Too complex for what their intelligence reports said humans could produce. Volthara ran the signal through the translation matrix. The computer systems hummed for several minutes, working to decode the message. When the results appeared on her screen, she felt her blood turn cold. We know you're coming. You have 72 hours to turn around. This is your only warning. Terran Defense Authority. She stared at the message for a full minute. Then she ran the translation again. Same result. She checked the source coordinates. The signal had definitely come from the Sol system, but that was impossible. According to intelligence, humans had no deep space detection capabilities. Their most advanced sensors could barely see beyond their own moon. How could they have detected a fleet 3 months away at warp speed? Valthara called Admiral Zeftai to the bridge. The Admiral arrived within minutes, still wearing his sleep robes. His mandibles clicked with annoyance at being awakened. "This better be important, Officer Valthara." "Sir, we received a transmission from the Sol system. The humans, they know we're coming." Admiral Zeftai's compound eyes focused on the communication station. "Show me." Valthara played the decoded message. Admiral Zeftai listened in silence. Then he laughed. The harsh sound echoed through the bridge. "Impossible. This must be a coincidence. Or perhaps they detected one of our scout probes. Their intelligence reports are clear. Humans have no technology capable of detecting us at this distance." "Sir," said Valthara quietly, "there's something else." I checked the signal's origin point. It didn't come from Earth. The Admiral stopped laughing. "What do you mean?" Valthara brought up the navigation display. The signal originated from coordinates 14.7 light-years behind us, approximately 43 degrees off our port side. The bridge fell silent. Every crew member turned to stare at the display. Admiral Zeftai's 4 hands gripped the command rail. "That's impossible," he said slowly. "Nothing could have gotten behind us. We've been at warp for 3 months. The computer confirms the origin coordinates, sir. Whatever sent that signal is positioned between us and Hegemony space." Admiral Zeftai felt something he had not experienced in decades of conquest. Fear. Not the simple fear of combat, but the deep fear that comes from facing the unknown. "Analysis," he commanded. "How could humans have positioned assets behind our fleet?" Science Officer Talvara hurried to her station. She ran calculations at maximum speed. "Sir, there are only 3 possibilities. First, they detected our departure from Zarian Prime and somehow traveled faster than us. Second, they have ships positioned throughout this region of space. Third, they have technology we don't understand. All 3 options are impossible based on our intelligence." "Yes, sir." "That's what makes this situation concerning." Admiral Zeftai stared at the star map. The Hegemony had conquered thousands of worlds. They have faced every type of enemy. Some were more advanced, some were more numerous, some were more desperate. But all of them had been predictable. Their capabilities matched their apparent technology level. This was different. The intelligence report said humans were primitive, Stone Age creatures who had barely learned to leave their planet. But somehow they had detected a fleet at impossible distances and positioned assets in locations that should have been empty space. Could this be a hoax? Asked General Corthan. Perhaps another species is protecting the humans? Negative, said Valthara. The signal's encoding matches human communication protocols. The language is definitely human. But the complexity is far beyond what they should be capable of producing. Admiral Zeftai considered his options. He could continue to Earth as planned. The signal might be a bluff. Or he could investigate the source coordinates to determine what had sent the message. Both choices involved risks. Sir, said Navigator Kelthik, we're receiving additional signals. Short bursts from multiple directions. The communications array lit up with incoming transmissions. Brief signals from dozens of different locations. All around the fleet. All using the same complex encoding as the first message. Valthara worked frantically to decode them. The messages were simple but chilling. Turn back now. Last warning. You are surrounded. Choose wisely. Admiral Zeftai studied the display showing the signal origins. The messages had come from empty space in all directions. According to sensors, nothing was there. No ships, no stations, no energy signatures. Yet somehow, dozens of transmissions had emerged from the void. "This is starting to feel like a trap," said General Corthan quietly. "A trap set by primitives with chemical rockets?" Admiral Zeftai's voice carried less conviction than his words. "Sir," said Telvara, "I recommend we send a scout ship to investigate the closest signal origin. If humans have ships in that location, we need to know." Admiral Zeftai nodded. "Deploy Scout 7. Full stealth configuration. Investigate the coordinates 12.3 light years to starboard. Do not engage. Observe and report." Scout 7 detached from the main fleet and disappeared into warp. The bridge crew waited tensely for its report. After 6 hours, the scout ship sent a brief transmission. Coordinates reached. Nothing detected. No ships, no installations, no energy signatures. "But sir, there are trace amounts of exotic radiation. Patterns suggest something was here recently. Something using technology we don't recognize." Admiral Zeftai felt his confidence cracking. For 3,000 years, the Hegemony had been the dominant power in the galaxy. Their technology was superior. Their tactics were proven. Their victory was always inevitable. But now, facing an enemy that shouldn't exist, armed with technology that couldn't work, positioned in places they shouldn't be able to reach, Admiral Zeftai began to wonder if this conquest would be as easy as planned. He ordered the fleet to continue toward Earth, but at reduced speed. And for the first time in his career, he activated the fleet's full defensive screens. The human message spread through Hegemony communication networks like wildfire. Admiral Zeftai had intended to keep the transmission secret, but word leaked from the communications department within hours. By the end of the day, every major power in the galaxy had copies of the decoded signal. At first, the reaction was laughter. Military commanders across dozens of worlds found the idea amusing. Primitives threatening the mighty Hegemony fleet? It was like insects threatening an orbital bombardment platform. High Command treated it as a curiosity rather than a genuine concern. But then the sightings began. On Nexus Station, a massive trading hub 847 light-years from Earth. Security Chief Mordek received his first unusual report during the morning shift. Surveillance had detected 17 unknown vessels docked at cargo platforms throughout the station. Unknown how? Asked Mordek, reviewing the security feeds. "They appear to be maintenance shuttles, sir. But they're not in any of our databases. The energy signatures don't match any known technology, and no one remembers them arriving." Mordek frowned. Nexus Station was one of the most secure facilities in the galaxy. Nothing entered or left without proper documentation. "Send a security team to investigate." The security team reached the first docking platform within minutes. But when they arrived, the shuttle was gone. No departure signature. No energy trail. No record of undocking. The shuttle had simply vanished, leaving behind only trace amounts of exotic radiation that the sensors couldn't identify. "Check the other platforms," ordered Moore single quotes DEK. All 17 shuttles had disappeared in the same way. Gone without trace, leaving behind only mysterious radiation signatures. The security recordings showed empty docking platforms where shuttles had been visible just minutes before. Similar reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The Kolvani detected unknown vessels in their asteroid mining fields. The Veshans found mysterious energy signatures near their outer colonies. The Zolani reported ships that appeared on sensors but couldn't be seen with optical instruments. Within 72 hours, the Galactic Monitoring Network had logged over 1,200 separate incidents. Unknown vessels appearing and disappearing across 43 star systems. all moving in perfect coordination, all leaving the same type of exotic radiation signature. The pattern was impossible to ignore. Someone with advanced stealth technology was positioning assets throughout the galaxy, and the timing suggested it was connected to the human message. On the Hegemony capital world, Emergency Defense Minister Kavlan called an urgent meeting of the High Council. The chamber filled with nervous chatter as the galaxy's most powerful beings tried to understand what they were facing. "Gentlemen," said Kavlan, "we have a situation. These sightings suggest a coordinated operation on a scale we've never encountered. Someone has deployed assets to over 1,000 locations across the galaxy within 3 days." General Thokmar, veteran of 100 campaigns, shook his head. "Impossible. No civilization has that kind of reach. The logistics alone would require resources comparable to our entire military." "And yet the evidence is undeniable," replied Kavlan. "Either we're facing an enemy with capabilities far beyond our estimates, or we're missing something fundamental about this situation." The discussion was interrupted by an urgent communication from the archives. Ancient Keeper Yelenoth appeared on the main display, his aged features showing deep concern. "Ministers," said Yelenoth, "you need to access the restricted archives immediately. Search for references to Sol System restrictions and quarantine protocols." "What quarantine protocols?" demanded Kavlan. "There's nothing in our databases about the Sol System. Check archive level Omega. The files are sealed, but current circumstances qualify for emergency access." The council members exchanged worried glances. Archive level Omega contained the galaxy's deepest secrets. Information so sensitive that most beings have forgotten it existed. Kavlan authorized the access with trembling hands. The files that appeared on the display made the chamber fall silent. Quarantine orders dating back 12,000 years. Warnings from civilizations that no longer existed. Testimonies from survivors of something called the Void War. "By the eternal stars," whispered General Thokmar. "What is this?" The files painted a picture that contradicted everything they thought they knew about humans. Earth wasn't a primitive world that had recently developed space travel. It was a prison planet. A place where an extremely dangerous species had been exiled after a war that nearly destroyed the galaxy. Ancient messages from the elder races filled the display. Warnings written in languages that were barely remembered. The humans cannot be allowed to rejoin galactic civilization. Their capacity for violence exceeds all known limits. Their technology development is unpredictable and dangerous. Recommend permanent quarantine status. Void War casualties exceed 12 billion beings across 47 star systems. Human weapons demonstrate ability to destroy entire solar systems. Peace negotiations failed. Exile is the only viable solution. Quarantine established. Humans relocated to Sol 3. All contact forbidden. Warning beacons established. May future generations forgive us for what we could not destroy. The files continued for hours. Battle reports describing human tactics that defied conventional military doctrine. Technology assessments of weapons that could crack moons and bend space itself. Psychological evaluations that described a species that refused to surrender under any circumstances. Defense Minister Kavlan felt his world crumbling around him. This can't be accurate. Our intelligence reports describe primitive chemical rockets and nuclear weapons. Ancient Keeper Yelenoth's expression was grim. Your intelligence reports describe what the humans want you to see. For 12,000 years, they've been pretending to be a developing civilization. Every probe sent to monitor them has been quietly intercepted. Every assessment has been carefully managed. Emergency signals began arriving from across the galaxy. Not from the Hegemony, but from species so old that most beings had forgotten they existed. The ancients of Andromeda. The First Builders. The Void Watchers. Civilizations that had withdrawn from galactic affairs eons ago were suddenly sending urgent warnings. The message from the Andromedans was the most chilling. You absolute fools. We marked them as restricted space for a reason. The humans aren't a primitive species. They're a sleeping giant, and you just poked it with a stick. Similar messages arrived throughout the day. Ancient races emerging from hiding to deliver the same warning. The Hegemony had made a catastrophic mistake. Earth wasn't a target for conquest. It was a quarantine zone containing the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever produced. Defense Minister Kavlan authorized emergency broadcasts to every civilized world. Evacuation orders for systems near the Sol region. Mobilization of all available defensive forces. Preparation for a war that might surpass the legendary Void War in its devastation. But in the depths of his mind, Kavlan feared it was already too late. The humans had been planning for this moment for 12,000 years. They had been watching, waiting, and preparing while the rest of the galaxy forgot the lessons of the past. The Hegemony had awakened something that should have stayed sleeping forever. And now the galaxy would pay the price for their ignorance. Emergency sessions convened on every major world as panic spread through galactic civilization. The discovery of the restricted archives had shattered everything the galaxy thought it knew about humanity. But the full truth was even more terrifying than anyone had imagined. On the ancient world of Andromeda Prime, the Keepers of Memory opened vaults that had been sealed for 12 millennia. Chief Archivist Zenther moved through the crystalline halls where the galaxy's deepest secrets were stored. His task was simple but horrifying. Find the complete records of the Void War. The files he retrieved painted a picture of devastation that made even the most hardened military commanders weep. The Void War hadn't been a simple conflict between civilizations. It had been the galaxy's desperate attempt to survive contact with humanity. Zenther transmitted the records to emergency councils across hundreds of worlds. The testimony of Fleet Admiral Corvus, who had commanded the Alliance forces during the war's final stages, was particularly chilling. Day 4012 of the human conflict. We have lost our 800th major fleet engagement. Human forces continue to demonstrate tactics that defy all military logic. Yesterday, a single human destroyer ship rammed our flagship, a vessel 100 times its size. The explosion destroyed both ships and crippled our entire battle group. They fight like beings who value victory over survival. The military reports continued in the same vein. Humans who refuse to retreat even when facing impossible odds. Human ships that self-destructed in perfect formations to maximize damage to enemy fleets. Human ground forces that continued fighting with improvised weapons even after their supply lines were cut. But the most disturbing records concerned human technology development. Dr. Velkaran, the Alliance's chief scientist, had documented humanity's terrifying ability to reverse engineer, capture technology, and improve it beyond the original specifications. The humans have taken our gravity, manipulation technology, and developed weapons that can create localized black holes. They've modified our shield generators to produce offensive energy fields that dissolve matter at the molecular level. Every piece of technology they capture becomes a weapon in their hands. The scientific reports revealed that humans didn't just copy technology. They understood it in ways that the original creators never had. Within months of obtaining any device, human engineers could produce variations that surpassed the original by orders of magnitude. The psychological evaluations were even more disturbing. Dr. Thelmana, an expert in species behavior, had studied captured humans during the war. Her findings challenged everything the galaxy understood about intelligent life. Humans display a level of adaptability that borders on the impossible. They learn new languages within days. They master complex technologies through observation alone. They form social bonds that make them fight harder when their companions are threatened, not weaker. Most disturbing of all, they seem to view impossible situations as challenges rather than defeats. The records showed that humanity hadn't started the Void War. They had been a peaceful species, focused on exploration and scientific advancement. But when attacked by the Kovani Empire, they had responded with a level of violence that shocked the galaxy. The Kovani had expected an easy conquest. Humans were outnumbered 1,000 to 1 and lacked advanced military technology. The war should have lasted weeks. Instead, it continued for decades as humans turned every scientific advancement into a weapon and every defeat into a lesson. Archaeological evidence showed that humans had evolved on a world where survival required constant struggle. Earth was a death world by galactic standards. Extreme weather, predatory animals, natural disasters that could destroy entire continents. Only a species with unlimited adaptability and refusal to give up could have survived such an environment. When transplanted to the galactic community, those survival traits made humans extraordinarily dangerous. They didn't fight wars to achieve political goals. They fought wars to survive, which meant they never stopped trying to win. The most classified files revealed the Alliance's final strategy. After 50 years of losing battles against increasingly sophisticated human forces, the Elder races had developed a terrible plan. They would offer humanity a gift that no species could refuse. A perfect world. Earth was selected because it met human requirements exactly. Similar to their original homeworld, but without the extreme dangers. Beautiful continents, abundant resources, isolated location that would prevent human expansion while giving them room to grow. The offer was presented as a peace treaty. Humans would be given Earth and left alone to develop their civilization. In exchange, they would withdraw from galactic affairs and make no attempt to contact other species. The humans had accepted the offer, but not because they were defeated. The war records showed that human forces were actually winning by the end of the conflict. They had reverse-engineered Alliance technology to the point where human ships were superior to anything in the galaxy. Their weapons could crack planets, and their defenses could withstand supernova-level explosions. Humanity accepted exile because they recognized what their presence meant for galactic civilization. They were too dangerous to coexist with other species. Their adaptability and refusal to surrender made peaceful coexistence impossible. But the exile came with conditions that the galaxy had forgotten. Humans would withdraw from galactic affairs, but they would continue monitoring space for threats that might endanger other species. If any civilization developed weapons of mass destruction or showed signs of becoming expansionist conquerors, humanity would intervene. For 12,000 years, humans had kept their word. They had prevented 3 potential extinction-level conflicts by providing anonymous technological aid to threatened species. They had stopped 5 different attempts by various civilizations to develop planet-killing weapons. They had maintained early warning systems for threats from dark space that could endanger all life in the galaxy. The galaxy's peaceful development over the past 12 millennia hadn't been due to natural evolution towards civilization. It had been carefully maintained by human intervention from behind the scenes. And now the Hegemony had violated the ancient agreement. By targeting Earth for conquest, they had forced humanity back into active galactic affairs. The sleeping giant was awake, and the galaxy would have to deal with the consequences. Chief Archivist Zenther transmitted one final file to the emergency councils. It was a message from the human leader who had negotiated the original exile. The words were simple, but carried a weight that made even ancient beings tremble. "We agree to your terms. We will withdraw to the world you have provided and leave you in peace. But understand this, we will be watching. If any species threatens the innocent or seeks to destroy what others have built, we will return. And when we return, we will not be seeking exile again. The revelation was complete. Humanity hadn't been conquered or contained. They had been negotiating from a position of strength, choosing exile to protect the galaxy from their own nature. Now, 12,000 years later, the hegemony had forced them to break their self-imposed isolation. The galaxy was about to rediscover why the elder races had feared humans more than any other force in the universe. Admiral HFY stood on the bridge of the inevitable victory, watching the tactical display with growing horror. His fleet had dropped out of warp at the edge of the Sol system, ready to begin the conquest of Earth. Instead, they found themselves surrounded. The human ships appeared without warning. One moment, space was empty. The next moment, elegant vessels materialized in perfect formation around the Hegemony fleet. They weren't the crude metal ships from the intelligence reports. These vessels seemed to bend light around their hulls, creating an effect that was both beautiful and terrifying. The lead human ship was smaller than a Hegemony frigate, but it radiated power that made Admiral HFY's sensors scream warnings about energy levels that shouldn't be possible. The ship's design was strangely familiar, though he couldn't place where he had seen such graceful curves and flowing lines before. "Admiral," said Science Officer Talvara in a trembling voice, "I'm analyzing their ship designs. They match archaeological records from precursor sites. Somehow, the humans have reverse-engineered technology from the civilization that built the galaxy's first stargates." Admiral HFY felt his mandibles click with nervous tension. The precursors had vanished millions of years ago, leaving behind ruins that no one could fully understand. Their technology was so advanced that most species couldn't even determine what their devices were supposed to do. "Impossible," he whispered. "No one has ever successfully analyzed precursor technology." "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the lead human vessel." The main screen activated to show a human female wearing a simple blue uniform. She looked young by human standards, but her eyes held knowledge that seemed ancient. When she spoke, her voice was calm and reasonable, which somehow made her more frightening than if she had been shouting threats. "Admiral HFY," she said, "I am Commander Sarah Chun of the Terran Defense Authority. You have violated the Sol Quarantine Agreement established 12,847 years ago. However, we are not unreasonable beings. You have two choices." Admiral HFY tried to speak, but found his voice had failed him. The human continued without waiting for his response. "Choice 1. Surrender immediately for processing and repatriation to your home worlds. Your crews will be treated well and return safely after educational counseling about the historical context of your actions." She paused, and for a moment her expression became almost sympathetic. "Choice 2. We demonstrate why your predecessors considered exile preferable to elimination." The threat was delivered in such a pleasant tone that it took Admiral HFY several seconds to understand what he had heard. When the implications sank in, he looked at his tactical officer. "Analysis of human vessels?" Tactical Officer Rekanal worked frantically at his console. "Sir, their energy signatures are off the scale. Individual ships are showing power readings equivalent to our entire fleet. And sir, we're detecting spatial distortions around their vessels. They're somehow manipulating space-time itself." Admiral HFY realized he was facing a species that could destroy his fleet without effort. But what terrified him more was that they were offering mercy instead. The humans weren't interested in conquest or revenge. They were offering his forces a chance to surrender and return home safely. "Commander Chan," he said finally, "I request clarification. You're offering to release my forces without punishment. Admiral, your species was not responsible for the original conflict that led to the quarantine. You attacked Earth because you didn't know the true situation. We hold no grudge against beings who acted from ignorance rather than malice. But the hegemony has conquered dozens of species, enslaved entire civilizations. Commander Chun's expression became more serious. Yes, we're aware of the hegemony's activities. That situation will be addressed separately. For now, we're concerned with ending this immediate threat without unnecessary violence. Admiral HFY looked around his bridge. His crew was staring at him with expressions of fear and confusion. They had come here expecting an easy conquest. Instead, they were being offered mercy by enemies who could destroy them with casual ease. "I surrender," he said quietly. Within hours, human vessels had taken control of the hegemony fleet. The process was carried out with efficiency that impressed even veteran military officers. Human boarding parties were polite, professional, and clearly operating with technology that made resistance pointless. Admiral HFY was brought aboard the human flagship for debriefing. The interior of the ship was unlike anything he had ever seen. The corridors seemed to be grown rather than built, with walls that pulsed gently with internal light. Gravity remained constant despite the ship's complex maneuvers, and the air carried a scent that reminded him of growing plants. Commander Chun met him in what appeared to be a garden rather than a briefing room. Real trees grew in precise formations around comfortable seating areas. Water flowed in impossible patterns that defied gravity. The effect was peaceful rather than intimidating. "Please sit." "Admiral," said Commander Chun, "we have much to discuss." Over the following hours, Admiral HFY learned the truth about humanity's role in galactic affairs. For 12 millennia, humans had been secretly preventing conflicts that could have led to galaxy-wide devastation. They had stopped the Kovani from developing temporal weapons. They had prevented the Zelani from creating self-replicating war machines. They had quietly eliminated 7 different attempts to build planet-killing superweapons. "You've been protecting us," said Admiral HFY with dawning realization. "Protecting everyone," replied Commander Chun. "When we accepted exile, we also accepted responsibility. Someone needs to watch for threats that could endanger all civilized life. We're equipped to handle problems that would overwhelm normal military forces. Why reveal yourselves now? Because the hegemony has grown large enough to threaten galactic stability. Your conquest pattern was accelerating toward a point where intervention would become necessary anyway. Your attack on Earth simply moved up our timeline. Within days, human diplomatic vessels appeared at every major world. The beings who emerged were nothing like the primitive humans from old intelligence reports. These were clearly representatives of an advanced civilization that had been hiding its true nature for millennia. The Galactic Council was reformed with human oversight. The hegemony's military structure was dismantled and its leaders subjected to what humans called educational counseling. Enslaved species were liberated and given technological aid to rebuild their civilizations. Most importantly, humans introduced new technologies that solved problems the galaxy had struggled with for centuries. Clean energy systems that could power entire star systems. Medical advances that eliminated most diseases. Agricultural techniques that could feed populations on previously barren worlds. But the humans made it clear that their emergence was not entirely by choice. Representative Maria Santos addressed the reformed Galactic Council with words that sent chills through every being present. We had hoped to remain in peaceful isolation for a few more millennia. Our monitoring systems have detected troubling activity in the dark regions between galaxies. Something is stirring in the void between star clusters. Something that makes the old hegemony look like children playing with toys. She gestured to a display showing deep space sensor readings that no one else in the galaxy could interpret. We have been preparing for this threat for 12,000 years, building defenses, developing countermeasures, creating the infrastructure necessary to protect not just our galaxy, but all life in this region of space. The Hegemony's aggression forced us to act early, which may have consequences for our preparations. The council chamber fell silent as beings realized that humanity's return to galactic affairs wasn't the end of their problems. It was preparation for a conflict that would make all previous wars seem insignificant. "What do you need from us?" asked the Andromedian representative. Commander Santa smiled, and for the first time, her expression carried a hint of the determination that had made humans legendary. "Everything you can give. The galaxy's age of isolation is ending. The age of cooperation has begun, because what's coming from the dark will require all of us working together to survive." In the depths of the Terran Defense Authority headquarters, new files were being opened. Files labeled Extragalactic Threat Assessment and Operation Eternal Vigil. Humanity had spent 12,000 years preparing for this moment. The real war was about to begin.